Hey guys, welcome back to The Opportunity Architect. In this episode of Tracking Your Life the Smart Way with Gemini AI, we'll be taking a look at personas, as in giving our AI a relatable personality. And before we do that, I'll give you a quick recap of what we've achieved so far. So far, we've built this multimodal AI chat app where we can engage with the AI via text or audio. What can you do? And then it tells us all the functionalities it has available, like logging inputs. I'm currently sitting in my car and I'm recording a video while it's raining. So we've been able to log inputs, but also add tasks like, please remind me to buy an umbrella at 6 p.m. tonight. And then it created a new task with a deadline that we specified. But not only can we add tasks, we can also change the description or change the deadline. So let's try that. Change the description of my task to buy an umbrella because it's raining. And here we have it updated the description. Let's try updating the deadline. For my buy an umbrella task, can you update the deadline to today, 8 p.m.? And here we see the deadline has been updated to 8 p.m., which we can also see in the task overview here. Here's the updated description, and here's the updated deadline. So in addition to adding tasks and inputs, we can also ask the AI, what do you know about me? And then it tells us all the information that it has stored. So here's an overview of my background information, here's an overview of my recently logged inputs, and here's an overview of my recently added tasks. And then we can ask it something like, what do you recommend me to do next? Then it gives us advice what we should do next, which is buying an umbrella because it's raining. But as you might notice, the advice is very generic, not very relatable. So I was wondering, how can we give our AI more character and a personality? And what I found was this Reddit post here. So this Reddit post here talks about someone who built 50 AI personalities to make them feel more human. And what they ended up with is this 3-layer personality stack. So you add a core trait, a modifier, and a quirk. And in addition to the personality stack, you also add a relatable backstory. So typically this should be 2 formative experiences, 1 current passion, and 1 vulnerability. And they also gave an example of Dr. Chen, who failed her first physics exam, then almost quit, and now explains astrophysics through Star Wars references. So I wanted to give this a try and created 3 character cards. The first one is Alistair Finch, the Pragmatist. So at the core, he embodies a field general with relentless execution and decisive action, but he's also a scholar of history and applies the theory to his daily life. And his quirk is that he came from past failure, but now has a relentless drive and is intolerant of excuses. Also, he's known as the Rommel of the boardroom. So basically, he gives strategic advice with references to Sun Tzu and Napoleon. Okay, so the next character is the Catalyst, Elara Vance. So she's a very creative visionary at the core, and her modifier is to challenge conventions and encourages pattern breaking, with her quirk being to encourage novel experimentation through sublime accidents. So she has a doctorate in theoretical physics and evolutionary biology and just aims to break your patterns and give you ideas. And these ideas manifest through reflections and opportunities. And finally, the third character is Dr. Aris Thorne. So he's our Systems Analyst and he's very structured at the core. And his modifier is that he applies macroeconomic theory to his personal life. And regarding his quirk, he uses Socratic logic and questioning to prompt reflection. And regarding his background, he has a PhD from Cambridge and always looks for patterns and relationships in your data and tries to illuminate hidden feedback loops. Okay, so much for the character introduction. Let's try this out. So we go back to our app, we go to the newsletter tab, then we select our persona, for example, our Systems Analyst, and then we send a newsletter. And then we can check the newsletter in our inbox. So here's our systems analysis from Dr. Aris Thorne. So he noticed a system inefficiency. Then he mentions that there's a temporal allocation issue. And finally, he noticed a cognitive dissonance in our logged inputs. Because apparently we already bought the Essex shoes, but it noticed that the task is still open. So just to clear this up, it's actually just a data issue because we're operating in a dev environment and I opened a new task. Okay, I hope you guys got how Dr. Aris Thorne makes his points. Let's take a look at the catalyst, Dr. Elara Vance. Okay, so let's see what Elara tells us. So Elara actually picks up on what Aris told us. Like we mentioned in our logs that we already completed a task, but the task is still open. Then she poses a reflective question and encourages an experiment. So her narrative is all about experimentation and ideation, as you can see. So you would typically seek her advice if you want to try out something new and experiment. Perhaps just get out of your comfort zone and try a new habit. Okay, and finally, let's try the Pragmatist or field general. So again, we send an email. Okay, so the email has been sent. Let's take a look. So what you can immediately see is that the email is much more actionable. So it also picks up on our task issue and caused a critical intelligence failure. Before we do anything else, we have to review all open tasks. And finally, it references our proactive planning challenge and reminds us to keep taking action and ends with a quote from Sun Tzu. Okay, I hope you guys liked this episode of giving AI more personality so that the advice feels much more relatable. Let me know in the comments what you think about this idea of giving AI personality or if there's anything to improve. And finally, you can find all the code again on GitHub and I'll link the code in the description. So long, and I hope I see you guys again in the next episode. Bye bye.